He knocked me over. I landed on the dog bowl.
This one's wife. How will they pay? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I've explained previously that money is of particular importance to somatic narcissists. Money allows the somatic narcissist to make a display of their wealth. They might be stingy with their money. They might be generous, buying people things, which in effect is bribery, which enables them to control people and receive fuel by way of their response. Having access to money may well enable that narcissist to pay for propaganda, to enable a facade to be managed. It can be utilised to purchase items, an expensive house, a flash car, jewellery, clothing, etc., travelling to exotic places, all of which can be used to control people by triangulation. Thus, money is important, and is particularly important to the somatic narcissist for the pursuit of the prime aims. In the way that all narcissists can use sex in some shape or form as a means to get to the prime aims, money also plays its part, but is of a particular importance to the somatic narcissist. This one's wife is a somatic narcissist. Therefore, material matters, appearances, and money are all critical to her. Those are her innate preferences. She came from a background which wasn't the worst, although she tried to portray herself as coming from a poor background for the purposes of engendering sympathy, and also likely to bull up her story of almost rags to riches. Look at me, I'm a super empowered turbo-feminist that has smashed through the glass ceiling, all on my own. Don't mention the breaks that I got as a consequence of my dad, Trevor, Corey, or Prince Harry. That's irrelevant. Thus she creates this narrative of being the Wonder Woman that came from nowhere, got into acting, and then has become one of the most famous women on the planet. Alongside that, she now enjoys considerable wealth. But the problem that she has is that she obtained that wealth as a consequence of the connection that she has to the man that she married and the fact that he's in the royal family. She didn't do it on the basis of talent. She didn't do it on the basis of hard work. She did it basically grifting the connection. This has provided her with a large mansion in Monte Shitshow. It's provided her with the ability to fly in private jets, to wear ill-fitting expensive clothing, to jingle-jangle with lots of jewellery, to have a motorcade wherever she goes, security following her around, PR puff pieces pumped out in order to try and counter the increasing level of unpopularity that this woman experiences. All of this results in considerable running costs, and it's all very well if you've got the talent to, for instance, appear in blockbuster movies, or, for instance, that you are a brilliant content creator that has your pulse on the zeitgeist, that you are somebody that is a talented songwriter and gets out on tour, putting in the hard yards, doing concert after concert after concert to make the money. But she doesn't have any of that, and therefore it's a legitimate question that when you look at the level of expenditure that they have, which, whilst you might not have the fine details, it's clear that they need many millions of pounds each year to service all of the things that she requires: clothing, jewellery, transport, accommodation, security, staffing costs. Where is it going to come from, particularly in light of the fact that Netflix is threatening to pull the plug? This is a question that was posed by Alison Boshoff in the Mail. Is Netflix planning to pull the plug on Harry and this one's wife? And if it does, how will they fund their lavish lifestyle? Of all the many startling elements of the Sussex relaunch, from the use of this one's wife's coat of arms to its timing as the king battles cancer, perhaps the most surprising is yet to be remarked on. It's this: at no point on any part of their new website, Sussex.com, is there a single mention of the word Netflix. This includes the section devoted to Archwell Productions, where you will find the following resume. Founded in 2020 by Prince Harry and this one's wife, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, our company is dedicated to illuminating thought-provoking and diverse narratives that underscore our common humanity and celebrate community through scripted and non-scripted TV, film, documentaries, and podcasting. And that's it. To jog memories, their estimated $100 million deal with the streaming giant was their first step into the world of commerce after Megxit. And when it was signed in September 2020, all involved said how delighted they were with the multi-year deal. Our focus will be on creating content that informs but also gives hope, the couple, whose son Archie was born in May 2019, said in a statement. As new parents, making inspirational family programming is also important to us. Don't think we've seen any of that, have we? They added that Netflix's unprecedented reach will help us share impactful content that unlocks action. Netflix boss Ted Sarandos, who's actually one of their near neighbours in a $35 million home in Monte Shitshow, said, "We're incredibly proud they have chosen Netflix as their creative home and are excited about telling stories with them that can help build resilience and increase understanding for audiences everywhere." He had seen off competition from Disney, NBC Universal and Apple to sign up the couple, who had only arrived in California 6 months previously, just as the pandemic hit. But for all the fine words about the intention to make a social impact, Harry later remarked in his television interview with Oprah Winfrey that he had been forced to make the Netflix deal because of pressing financial need. As he put it, "My family literally cut me off financially," he added. "I've got what my mum left me, and without that we would not have been able to do this." This being the move to a mansion in Monte Shitshow. So what is going on with the media deal, which is meant to be funding their new life? Perhaps surprisingly, the spectre of relative penury and wrangles over money loom rather large over the couple and their relationship with Netflix, and cast a fascinating light on the question of what they are going to do next. Well-placed sources with knowledge of the deal that the association has been viewed as disappointing all round, with actual fact Harry and this one's wife drawing a relatively meagre amount from the streamer, thought to amount to as little as $20 million for them personally, all in. Considering the delivery of a blockbuster tell-all 6-part documentary, Harry and this one's wife, in December 2022, which was seen by 81 million households in its first 3 weeks, the couple could judge that $20 million isn't much at all. Maybe we should look no further when seeking to explain the omission on the website. What's more, the expectation in Hollywood is that both parties will break the deal as soon as it is contractually viable, which will mean a divorce in September this year or next. Will the Sussexes have by then produced their rom-com film based on the Carly Fortune book, Meet Me at the Lake? And will they have produced any of the documentary projects, including a Prince Harry in Africa series, which has also been long in the planning? Other proposals they are trying to get off the ground include a feminist retelling of the origins of Charles Dickens' Miss Havisham in the form of a TV drama. Yet while the writers and actors strikes took out much of last year, it is notable how little the couple have actually made work for Netflix. The head of content, Bella Bayaria, tried to put a brave face on the inactivity at an event last week. She said the couple had a number of projects in very early development. But as we know, Harry has no real interest in doing this because he has lived a life of privilege and isn't really used to hard work, and this one's wife is intrinsically lazy as a consequence of the way that her narcissism functions, which is, if she can get to the prime aims by just talking about things and doing very little, that's what happens, which means take an individual with no imagination, take an individual with no work ethic, take an individual that is entitled and throw in her narcissism, which basically says, we need to get the maximum through doing the minimum, you're only ever going to meet a low output from this woman. Meanwhile, this one's wife told reporters at a Variety event earlier this year, we have so many exciting things on the slate, I can't wait until we can announce them. Although nothing has yet been announced. A source with knowledge of the situation says that the Netflix deal is a dead duck. The whole arrangement was basically the trade-off for Netflix getting the Harry and This One's Wife documentary. It was never the huge payday that the press reported. The $100 million number was always a newspaper figure. It's thought they got a small fraction of that number up front, and everything from there on in is largely contingent on performance. The fact that the company has been relatively inactive so far demonstrates they won't have been paid that much either. Rather than a massive lump sum, the deal consisted of a multi-year commitment from Netflix to cover the overheads of Archewell. This is said to be in the region of $3 million a year, of which the Sussexes will keep a small portion personally. Most of that money is being spent on overheads and project development costs. Indeed, when Archewell bought the rights to make a film of Meet Me at the Lake, it was reported that, quite unusually, Netflix had stumped up the $1 million cash rather than Archewell, reflecting the fact that the company, Archewell, is not swimming in funds. By far, the most lucrative element was the production fee for the Harry and This One's Wife documentary of around $20 million, of which it will have gone directly, $15 million of which will have gone directly to the couple, the rest being spent on making the series. The changing cast of characters at Archewell has not helped relations with Netflix either. The source adds there's been a lot of turbulence at executive level within Archewell, and I know for a fact that Netflix are annoyed to be advancing several $1 million a year of overhead to a company that can't seem to retain more than a handful of staff at a time, and that has almost no day-to-day visibility around town. The antics at Archewell are, of course, as a consequence of the fact that This One's Wife and Harry dedicate 1 hour a week to it, therefore they don't exactly have a steadying hand on the tiller, and it's likely that, of course, This One's Wife will just bark instructions at people with the consequence that they think, actually, I don't want to work here. We've seen before the staff turnover that she experienced at Buckingham Palace, where she was allocated a staff and people left because of the way that she treated them. Her narcissism is the driver behind that. Entitled, lacking emotional empathy, having no accountability for her behaviour, expecting people to understand what she wants without her actually explaining what is required, results in an unhappy staff, and similar will be experienced at Archewell. Thus, at executive level, it's somewhat chaotic, which does not endear them to Netflix. It wasn't what Netflix was pitched, and the shaky executive base is a big part of the reason why Archewell hasn't got much done. The company lost head of content, Ben Browning, in January 2023. January 2024, production manager Bennett Levine also walked. Rebecca Sananez, the head of audio, left the Archetypes podcast once it had been produced. Netflix has also pulled back on its film and TV expenditure massively over the past 12 months after it became clear that previous spending levels were not sustainable. Hollywood is generally a much more financially sober environment too. In addition to the actors and writers' strikes and the pandemic, peak TV is over, with fewer shows being made, and at a lower price point, which, of course, is going to hit the Sussexes. The source says there is an across-the-board acknowledgement that Netflix will want to get out of, or scale down further, the deal at the earliest contractual opportunity. You might say that Netflix haven't done too badly out of the relationship, as they're probably only out of pocket to the tune of around $30 million, or thereabouts, and they did at least get a huge hit out of the investment by way of the documentary. As for Harry and This One's Wife, it's understood that they will have managed to keep around $15 million just for themselves, which isn't bad business. But that kind of money doesn't last long with their lifestyle. Indeed, if you take into account what they would have to pay by virtue of tax and then what they're left with thereafter, then it won't really go a long way at all. Their lifestyle is indeed idyllic by any standards, and included the purchase of their Monteciccio mansion for $14.7 million with a mortgage of $9.5 million. The potential mortgage payments on such a borrowing may run to $50,000 a month. Then there is security, generally thought to cost somewhere north of $2 million a year, plus taxes of $68,000 a year, staff costs of $300,000 a year, and utilities costing up to $24,000 a year. Harry's legacy from Princess Diana is generally said to be around £7 million all in, plus a further amount from a legacy left by the Queen Mother. That will not go far in California, so you can see how money could become a pressing concern. Among the biggest money spinners of all has actually been Harry's memoir Spare. Released in January last year, it has sold around 4 million copies. If we are to assume a relatively modest cut for Harry of 15%, that would have netted him $15 million, give or take. He has given an unknown portion of the profits to charity. It's unclear how much money the Sussexes made from the podcast to Spotify, for which Archwell managed to make just one 12-episode podcast. It was said to be worth $20 million, but again, will have most likely only netted them a fraction of that amount, given the lack of content created. Once again, the laziness and entitlement of this one's wife, driven by her narcissism, coming back to bite her on the backside because she doesn't get paid the amount that it's worth because she hasn't produced anything. The Wall Street Journal reported with restraint that they failed to reach the productivity benchmark. But looking beyond the end of the Netflix deal, a world in which this one's wife has a podcast doesn't look like a world in which the couple maintain a house with 16 bathrooms. Logic would suggest that they brave the backlash and write more books, as the story of their fallout with the royal family remains compelling. Even a cookbook, which apparently was this one's wife's preference, would be a great potential source of income. Last summer it was announced that this one's wife had signed with Ari Emanuel, the powerhouse agent at WME. However, although she then turned up at some events with prominent WME clients, such as Kevin Costner's charity party, there have been no blue-chip commercial deals for her. She was also said to be about to revive her website, The TIG, and sign an endorsement deal with the fashion house, Dior. Neither has yet happened. Some believe that WME are letting her go, again because of the problem of how to turn her megawatt profile into some kind of tangible product. They are said to have played no part in the Sussex.com rebrand, which does not augur well. Inquiries about her status there go unanswered. Interestingly, their use of private jets may be another indication that money is at issue. They travelled with oil billionaire Michael Hurd on his PJ to see Katy Perry in Vegas in November, and their outing from Santa Barbara to Vancouver for the Invictus events was also by private jet and at somebody else's expense, according to page 6 in the US. It's always other people's money, a source told the publication. But how to keep it coming? Thus it would appear that the fact that they ponce off other people is demonstrative that they're already in financial difficulties vis-a-vis wanting to maintain the lifestyle that this one's wife currently enjoys. And it doesn't appear that there's anything on the horizon. And thus, once Netflix goes, as it surely will, all it would appear that they have is this one's wife's podcast deal with Lemonada, which is hardly going to be mega millions. Thus, as it stands, the question is, how will they pay? And at the moment, there isn't an obvious answer to that. This means that most likely, this one's wife is going to encourage Harry to seek reconciliation with the royal family, and that they're going to have to trade on those royal roots once again. Their attempts to go it alone have singularly failed, and they've singularly failed because of the narcissism of this one's wife has made her complain, play the victim, which has bored people, cast nasty comments about the royal family, which has irked people, engage in behaviours which has created a toxicity around her, which means that many brands don't want anything to do with her, has increased her unpopularity, which means, again, that many brands don't want anything to do with her, and has led to a lack of opportunities. It also means that her laziness and entitlement has resulted in a lack of content, which other outlets would see and think, well, we're not going to waste our money. Somebody else has already suffered that. she's not going to change. Therefore, why would we bother? Lemonada did, because as I've explained elsewhere, they got a huge amount of publicity rather, whereas most people have never heard of Lemonada. Now they have, and it probably hasn't cost them that much, because they won't be throwing big bucks at this one's wife, because one, they don't have them, and two, even if they have, based upon previous output, they recognise that it's not worth doing. Accordingly, there is a real issue with regard to how the Sussexes are going to continue to service their outgoings, and there'll be increasing desperation on the part of this one's wife, because she will not want to let go, because of her somaticism, of the lifestyle that she currently enjoys. Therefore, the options will either be, because she's not going to get the deals, she's not going to create the content, therefore the only two options are somehow worm your way back into the royal family, which seems unlikely, or, more likely, ditch Harry and try and grab somebody else who's got money. And as I've explained before, that's the most likely route towards Harry's disengagement. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.